Hi, welcome to TinkerzLab, and in this episode we are going to be performing our very first video editing and rendering project. This is going to be a very basic project. In the last episode we went over the interface on Kdenlive. I gave you the basics of the interface so that you guys could get started with it. So now I'm going to show you just a basic project from start to finish. So first we want to save our file. And I'm just navigating to my tutorial folder for Kdenlive editing. So this is going to be Kdenlive video editing 1 1080p, which is going to be the resolution of the file, of the video file, and the rendering. So I'm going to save that. And it's telling me where it's going to save the cache files. So I'm going to go into project because my video source is 60 frames per second at 1080p. So I want to go in and make sure that we've got HD 1080p 60 frames per second selected. I've got one video track, one audio track set up, thumbnails for video and audio, and it'll save the cache data, the temporary files, to my top level folder that I just selected. I'm going to say OK. It's going to move that content. It's letting me know the project has changed. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to go in and we want to load our assets that we want to use, the video we want to edit. And I'm in the assets folder now, so I'm going to grab this MP4 video file here. I'm going to grab my TinkerzLab logo, and I think that's all I want to add for this project. And it says no profile found for your TinkerzLab logo. Of course not, because it's just a image file. So you can just select cancel. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our video file. We're going to drag it down here to the V1, and it'll automatically put the audio track on A1. Alright, so we can see it in our view window here. Now you can, sometimes if you've got multiple tracks, you can't see all of them. So if you just come over here where this center line is, if you just hover over it, you see that the mouse cursor changes into an up and down arrow. Just left click it and drag it, and you can move it up. And I have to do that frequently when I'm first setting up, if I need to access my lower audio or video tracks, and then you could just pull it back down. I like to have my preview window as large as possible. Alright, so one thing that I'm going to do right away, so that I don't have to, because we're going to be making some cuts in the video file, so I don't want to have to go back and add this later on to different segments. So I'm going to add it to the full segment right now, and that is, I took this video with an action cam, and the microphone always records at a lower volume than I like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into effects here. And up here in this box, you can actually do a search for what you're looking for, which is really handy. And I want to increase the gain on the audio track. So I'm just going to type in gain. And you'll see there's down here under the volume and dynamics, there's gain and SOX gain. I'm not sure if the Windows version comes with SOX gain. That's what I typically use. So I'm just going to grab the one right here that I know is going to come with the Windows version of it. And so we're going to grab that, and we're just going to drag it down, and we're going to drop it onto our audio track. And then if you click that, it'll show this little box that says gain on it. If you just click that and come up here in your effects and composition stack, you can see that your effect is there for you to edit. So it's currently at the default 100% audio. So I want to increase that to about 140% for the entire audio track. Alright, so we've got that taken care of. And I recommend you do that. If you're going to make cuts in your in your video and audio file that you're loading up, if you need to change the volume or something on it, do it when you got the entire track loaded before you make any cuts to it. Otherwise, you'll have to go back and add that same effect to each one of those individual segments. Okay, this just makes it a lot easier. Okay, so we've got our audio turned up. All right, so let's see where we want to start this, our endpoint on this video. And I think what I want to do is I want to go and fast forward through this until I get to the point where I've got the plane on the ground and I'm going to be taking off from the ground. So let's go ahead and fast forward that until right here where I'm starting the run to get it in the air. So I always like to start at an even number of seconds and end with an even number of seconds, so I don't have a partial second in the render. You can see right here it's showing 32 seconds into the video, 41 frames. It's 60 frames per second. So I'm just going to change that to 00 right there. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say this is where I want to set my end zone. Okay, so you can see this little blue line here. It's marked my endpoint. So when I start to render the file, I want to render it based on the portion of the video that I've selected. So that's telling Kdenlive this is where I want to start with my render. Okay, so now we're going to fast forward through this. We're going to go through the takeoff. I'm just going to run a circuit with it. I want to make this really, really short for the render. Okay, so there's one circuit. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this right here. And let's just put that on an even segment too. 5900. And I'm going to go over here where my scissors are. And I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to line this orange bar up. This shows where in the video I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to line it up with that, with the cursor that I just put at 59 seconds, and I'm going to left click. And as you can see, it's cut the video in the audio file now. All right, so I'm going to go back and use my selector over here, and I'm going to reduce the zoom level on the file so I can see more of the timeline. I'm going to grab my selector, I'm going to drag it, I'm going to go all the way to the point where I'm coming in for a landing. See if we can find that. Should be pretty close to it. Yeah, so this is where I'm coming in for a landing. So right here at 6:15, I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to even that up to an even number of frames. I'm going to cut that. I'm going to go back to my scissors and I'm going to select right here. I'm going to line it up with my cursor again. And I'm going to cut it right there. I'm going to go back to my selector here. On this entire section, I'm going to cut out. And I'm just going to highlight it and I'm going to select delete. And so that whole segment is now gone. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to drag the end portion of the video that I want to render. And I'm going to drag it until it meets the first part, the first segment that I have. Okay, so now what I want to do is decide where I want to have my endpoint on my render. So I'm going to come back here and right after I land, that looks good right there. So I'm going to go to 127.00 and this is where I'm going to set my endpoint. So right where that cursor is, and I'm going to hover over here where it says set zone out. I'm going to select that. And so now you can see that this entire blue line is selecting the portion of the video that I want rendered from the endpoint to the out point that I set. All right, so now if I go up here to project, and let's go ahead and save that real quick before we render. All right, so we've saved our project. So I'm going to go over here to project. I'm going to select render. And I've got it set for lossless. I want it to be a lossless format. And I'm going to rename this file. I always like to be able to tell my lossless render from the video file that I'm actually going to upload. This is going to be a pristine file that's going to have the same clarity as the original source material. So I'm just going to name that lossless. I'm going to add lossless to the end of the file name so I can distinguish it. And I want to make sure that I've got the selected zone on. Okay, so now that we've got it renamed, we've got our selected zone for our rendering. And now I'm just going to tell it to render to file. And this won't take very long because it is a very, very short segment. Now it's telling me it's finished. Okay. And I'm going to save that again. And I'm going to go into my file manager and go up one level from my assets. And here's my lossless video file. You can see it's 1.5 gigabytes in size. So let's just go ahead and take a look at it. We are clear. Free and clear to navigate. There we go. Get through the sand there. This is just 55 seconds long. Okay, I just switched into wind mitigation mode. I was in safe mode there on takeoff. I need all the help to keep it straight, taking off from here as I can. The breeze kicked up on the way in. Let's see, it's still going. Let's see if we can set it down with the wind. There we go. Okay, so we have completed our first project, our first render, and I don't know if it'll be the next episode, but it'll be fairly soon. I will introduce you to the application that I use to transcode that lossless video into a format that I upload to YouTube or Facebook or any other online site where I'm going to publish it. I'll show you my settings because it results in a very good looking video online. It's not lossless, but the settings are very good. It's a very good quality video. As a matter of fact, the video you're watching right now use those same settings. So anyway, that's a wrap on this episode. I think you have all the information you need to use Kdenlive for basic video editing tasks. And as I stated in the last video, I will introduce you to more features and more complex editing and rendering in future tutorials. So stay tuned, and I will see you in the next episode.